for joining us today. And so one of the things we wanted to start with, so we're doing the four models, the economic model, and then lead gen, then budget, then organizational. And there's a lot, if you look at the red book, there's actually 127 pages before he gets to the economic model, right? So the first 127 pages of the red book talks about mindset and other things. And so there's two things that we want to cover real quick before we jump into the economic model.
I think we had talked about that there's a lot in that, but we have like specific classes that are devoted to some of these. So that's why we were just going to touch on a couple, because like the 6 personal perspectives and, you know, your MVVBP, that's really like its own class, and that's offered in the market center. But so it would be beneficial to go back and look at those, but they're just really in depth. So I'd sign up for those classes in the market center.
So the first thing is the 9 ways an MREA thinks, right? And so I figure we need to touch on this and then the next thing, because as we talk about the economic model, these things are very important with that model. So the 9 ways they think, the first one is think powered by a big why, right? And I'm not going to go, as Yvette said, I'm not going to go too in depth on these because there's classes for those. But think powered by a big why.
Jim, I don't know if you cut out for everybody, but you cut out for me. What was that one?
Think powered by a big why. Okay. The second one, think big goals and big models, right? So when you're thinking about models and goals, you want to think with the end in mind. Because otherwise you're going to have to change some things along the way, which seems like we all end up having to do. Third one is think possibilities. Fourth one is think action. Fifth one is think without fear. Sixth one is think progress. Next one is think competitively and strategically. Then think standards, and then think service. So you need to think about all those as as you make your economic plan. And every year when you sit down and do your economic plan to figure out what the following year looks like, you want to keep these things in mind. The next thing I wanted to touch on, because they talk about it, is the 8 goal categories of the MREA.
So I'll take those. I'll run through those. I just wanted to say the 9 things that Jim just went through, those start on page 71 of the MREA, and he really breaks them down in there. But if you wanted to go back and go through those.
Yep.
So the next thing are the 8 goal categories. And so if we don't track these, we really can't build out a good economic model. You know, there's numbers that we can plug in, and I think you'll see when Jim has the example, you'll see that Gary has some, you know, he polled people through the years, and so he's put together some numbers and percentages and conversion rates that we want to hit, but we really want to track these numbers so we can fine tune our businesses, and it's really specific to us. So the first thing that you want to track, and this starts on page 110. I think these are from page 107 to 116 in the MREA. But the first one on page 110 is going to be leads generated. So the 3 items that you want to track there are how many leads do I need to hit my goal? How many leads do I need to have come in to hit my goal? And then you want to track how many did I receive? So you know what you need, but how many did I actually receive? And then the third thing is the source. Where did they come from? And I think source is probably one of the most difficult ones for us to track, not because it's difficult to know where they came from, but we get busy. And, you know, maybe we take a call when we're in the car of a lead, and we don't think to ask, how'd you hear about me? Or, it just falls off our radar. But it's important to know where they came from so that when we're building out these models in the future, that we know, like, where do, in the budget model, where do we want to put money? Where do we have the most success? So, but people have a really hard time tracking that source. So the second thing we want to track on page 111 is listings. And we want to have a seller-focused business. We want to really trust that, because I know it's really easy for us to go, buyers are out there, we can pick up the buyers pretty easy, but to build a really stable business, we want to make sure that we're listing focused, and we got to trust that if we properly market these listings, the buyers are going to come to us. We don't have to spend that extra money to find those buyers. We need to get out, we need to own the market, we need to have the listings, and we'll market those, and we'll trust that those buyers will come to us. So you really want to build your business model around taking a specific number of listings. And so you want to track those. How many listings did I take this week? How many listings did I take this month? And compare those against what did my business plan say that I need to take, and how many did I actually take? The third thing that we want to track is contracts written. And so in contracts written, there's three things that we want to track there. We want to track the number that we've written. How many did we write this week, or how many did we write this month? What's the volume that we've written? And what's the GCI? What are the gross commissions? What's the commission on those that we wrote? And so, why is that important for us to track written? And it's because we're going to compare that to the next one that we track, which is contracts closed. And it's the same thing there. How many contracts did we close? The number closed. What was the volume that we closed? And what was the GCI that we closed? And so when we track both of those, contracts written and contracts closed, then we have the opportunity to compare those two. And this will really speak to our conversion rates, and also it'll start to show us where can we improve. So for example, maybe you're not getting offers accepted. And so by knowing, well, how many did I write and how many did I actually get, you can go back and say, do I need to look at how to write a stronger offer? Are there things in maybe the way I carry myself, or there's just different things that you can start to see, but unless we're tracking those, it's really off of our radar. And so contracts written, contracts closed. The next thing, the fifth thing we want to track is money. And so you'll never have a strong budget model if you don't learn to track your money. So the things that we want to track in our money is our GCI, how much money did our business make? The next thing is how much did we spend? And then the third thing is the net income. How much profit did my business make? And then if you run a team, you want to also track your agent compensation. How much money are my agents making? And so why do we track our agent compensation? And it really boils down to, because we need to care about people. They're not just numbers to us. We need to know, are our people earning what they need to earn to make a living? Are they hitting their goals? So as team owners, that really needs to be something that we track. It needs to be important to us, and just so that we know, are people thriving in our world? The next thing we want to track is people. So 3 things that we want to track there. One is recruiting. So who do I have and who do I need in my organization? And that will speak to the organizational model, which is, I think, the last one that Jim's going to do. So who do I have? Who do I currently have in my world? And who am I going to need? And then training. What training do I need? And unfortunately, typically that one will show up after we hire someone, and we're like, holy cow, what do I do now? I have this person in my world. What training do I need? But we need to be looking at that. What training do I need? And then consulting or accountability. What accountability do I have in place? What system do I have for for really looking at that. What are my goals? What are the goals for my people? Are we hitting that? And that might be, a 30-minute weekly one-on-one with your people.
Interrupt for a second.
Yeah.
And when you look at who do I have and who do I need, you need to look ahead. Like, we are looking at hiring the people right now for the people that we need for next year. Because there is a training and ramp up period before they're actually in production. So keep that in mind. Go ahead.
What are you using to track all this stuff? Just simple Excel spreadsheets, or?
Yeah, honestly, you can use a simple Excel spreadsheet. It kind of depends on what it is. So the first few that we were looking at, like leads generated, listings, contracts written, contracts closed. Personally, we use CTE. That system to track all of that. So, it's kind of a little bit of input there for a lot of output. Money, people, systems, and tools, I would just an Excel spreadsheet. Probably just an Excel spreadsheet on that. I don't think that we have anything formal that we track that on. But I would, if you don't have CTE, I would definitely look at that, because like I said, you put in a little bit of information and it gives you a lot of output to really look at your business and dissect some of these things.
So what you see with like contracts written and contracts accepted, does it often match what you're hearing out there in the environment? Like right now you hear that inventory is incredibly low. You have to write, multiple offers, nothing's getting accepted. I mean, does it often match that? Or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And depends on the agent, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
We have some agents like Lauren. She is incredible at finding off-market properties or getting offers accepted.
But what's happened is, because we have that, tracking that, what are we writing and what are we losing? I mean, I think for the agents individually, a lot of times that is on their radar. Hey, because what they say to me is, hey, I'm working my butt off and I'm not getting anything. And so and then we look at that, and then that's that opportunity to then go in and say, okay, let's look at your offer. Let's look at, maybe it's even at the buyer consult, and you're like, well, are you setting your clients up for success? Are you preparing them for, what's going to happen when they get out there and they're writing, offers? And we talk about what price point are your people in. If your people are in a 150 to 200 price point, we got to really have conversations about that up front, because we know that they're going to, more likely they're going to hit some roadblocks going through here. And we don't want to be talking about that when they're in the middle of it. We want to talk about it in the beginning. So then what happens is, then we have more success, because, our people are writing stronger offers. They know, hey, we're not going to go in, under list price, because I know my agent talked to me about this. And those conversations really help you to have a stronger conversion rate on that written to close.
I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but I completely agree with the consult in the beginning. Sometimes it just feels like it's very easy to be somewhat negative, like, hey, this is going to be a tough road ahead. Are there any tips or strategies you use just so, you don't look like a negative Nancy, essentially, in the beginning?
Oh.
I think one of the things we do is we talk a lot about what we see that is winning, right? Mm-hmm. So from the listing, from the listing side, we see certain things that tend to win, right? Whether it's the inspections or the appraisal contingency or just a solid offer, right? I mean, we actually won the other day on multiple offers with an FHA offer.
Wow.
But we knew there was going to be peeling paint, that issue. So we addressed up front with the agent, here is our plan for the peeling paint.
Okay.
Right? Here's what we're going to do if that comes up during the appraisal, which I guarantee you it will, right?
Right.
And so having those discussions, but also you got to have the discussion with the client and then have the discussion with the agent, right?
Okay.
We didn't just send over the offer and say, here's our offer.
I think too, I think it's knowing at the consult their motivation and why they're, why are they making this move? Why is that important to them? And so, as you hit kind of these roadblocks, not allowing them to get focused on, well, we lost another one, it's coming back to, hey, here was your goal, and continuing to bring them back to that, and having a reset. And I know one of the things that Lauren does on our team is she knows we're going to look at a certain number of homes. It's usually 3 to 5 homes. If they haven't found one, or if they haven't locked in on one, they come back in for a consult. And that's really kind of a reset. Let's wash out the negative, and let's come in and let's reset again. Let's talk about your goals, and let's re-energize them to get back out there and continue to write more offers.
Okay.
So the 7th one, systems and tools, which a lot of times you'll hear in Keller Williams' world called leverage. We call that leverage. So the 2 things you want to track there are, what new systems or tools do we need to add? And what current systems or tools do we need to improve or upgrade? And you've got to be looking at, it's really easy, especially when we're busy, for this stuff to fall off our radar. The challenge with leverage is it takes, whether it's a person or it's a system, it takes time to identify it, create it, and deploy it. So if we wait until it's like, oh gosh, I need to revamp the system, or I'm looking at this and now I'm realizing the system isn't working, there's a time factor in that. So when we're continually coming back and looking at, how is this system working? Am I getting the return on investment, the ROI on this tool? We're not, then getting to our budget model and saying, holy cow, at the end of the year, what happened? We're constantly going back and reevaluating. Sorry, it's really loud out there. Sorry, big truck went by. So we want to constantly be evaluating those systems and tools. And then the last one, wrapping up on page 115, is personal education. And so a successful agent is always looking at their personal development, and not just real estate wise, but one of the things Jim and I are working at right now is health goals. And all of that comes back to our business, because it's like, gosh, if we're not healthy, we can't run a strong business. If we're not healthy, we're not happy. So it's really looking at personal development in all areas of your life. And so what you want to track there, one of the things that I had is like our businesses it's not a set it and forget it by any means. We have to constantly be coming back and looking at, how do we improve? What areas of our life? So you want to track, what knowledge or skills do you need personally? And then if you have people in your organization, what knowledge or skills do those people need to be successful in their role? And on our team, we work a lot of, my people are not, they're not just my people from 9 to 5. They're my people 24/7. And so always looking at not just what do they need to do the job, but are they thriving, in life in general? And are they happy? Are they happy in business? Is there a balance? So, those
what do
are
they need next, right? What do they need next in their business? So like with Lauren, she's looking at hiring a showing assistant. So I've got to get her education on what that takes and what that looks like, and that whole model, right? So what does everybody on your team need?
So those are the 8 categories that you really want to have a way to track these, and you want to have built into your schedule the time, whether it's weekly on some of these things. I mean, some of them you may look at daily. How many leads do I have coming in? What came in today versus what I needed to come in today? Or a, weekly or monthly, but have that on your calendar so you're tracking these, because they really are vital to being able to build out these business models. All right.
All right.
What you got?
Now we finally get to the economic model, right? Like, but those things, like I say, as you go through the book, you need to keep those things in mind as you come to the economic model and you take a look at it, because they will be factors. So today's goal is to understand the fundamentals of the economic model, and we want to know where our money comes from, where it goes, and how much is left, right? And why do we need it? So Gary, on page 129, Gary says every business and every agent has an economic model, whether they realize it or not, right? Most people don't want to pay attention to it, but you need to. You need to understand where all those things happen and how the cause and effect of it all, right? So let's look at some things. Let me share my screen here. All right. So this is the formula for the economic model right here. You guys can see the screen, right?
Yep, I can see it.
Is it clear or is it small? Do I need to make it bigger?
I can see it.
Okay. And I have this is a spreadsheet here that I can send if you guys want it, because it makes it really easy to change things, right? So let's go through this. Let's talk the terms here. So this is your equation for success, right? So the first thing we start with is our net income. How much do we want to make, right?
So that's down at the bottom, right, Jim?
That's down at the bottom. That's right here, that number. And so for this example, this example is of a millionaire real estate agent, somebody that nets $1 million, right? So this is what it looks like here, and I'll leave it like this, and a little bit later on we can change some things and play around with it. But as we go through this is what it looks like. So the first thing is, so your net income, right? After all the other things are taken out, this is what you're left with. This is what you'll have to pay taxes on. $1 million would be awesome. So the next thing is up here, and let's look at the seller side for now, right? The left side.
Well, Jim, can you talk about the expenses in the GCI that's right above that?
Yep. So, and we'll get to that next. So you've got gross revenue there, right? And that is before your expenses and cost of sales.
Okay.
And there's two types of expenses, and we'll go through those. So your gross revenue, right? That's your GCI right here, $1 million. Then you have your expenses, and you've got, so the first expense is if you have a team or you're a single agent, your cost of sale. That is anything that comes out of your check before you get it. Okay? So you get your GCI in, right? $200,000 sale. If you charge 3%, and for this example here, we're basing both the buyer side and the seller side on 3% commission. So $6,000 comes in. So if you're a single agent, your cost of sale is anything that comes out. So anything that you pay the brokerage.
Like your splits and
your splits, your royalty, whatever there. If you're a team, that would also, or could also include referral fees to agents that sent you referrals. It could include splits with your buyer's agents, splits with your listing agents, anything that comes out before you get your check. Okay, that's a cost of sale.
so those are things that are only paid if the transaction closes, right?
Yep, it's specific to that transaction. If a transaction does not close, there is no fee there, right? And then you have your expenses. Those are paid whether a transaction closes or not, right? That is office rent. That is gas. That is your dues to Narmar and Grar. That's your CRM cost. That's if you're paying for any leads from Zillow or any of those other services. That's all your other expenses. That it doesn't matter if you sell anything or not, you have to pay it. Ideally, and we'll cover this more in the budget model, but what we're shooting for is 30% on the expenses and 30% on the cost of sales.
If you're a team.
If you're a team, right? If you're an individual agent, your cost of sale and your expenses total should be 30%. So we've got our cost of sales and expenses there, right? Then we got our gross revenue from sales. And if you look, the formula on the bottom there, so everything that's on this sheet in blue, you can change. Everything in black auto-populates based on what you put in, okay? So your list side and your buy side, ideally as a balanced business, you want to shoot for 50%. 50% listings sold, 50% buyers, right? So that's why we got the 50-50 there. Then you got your gross revenue from sales, you got your commission, and so for this example, we're figuring 3%, and we'll talk towards the end about what happens if you lower or up your commission, how that affects everything. Then you have your seller sold volume, you have your average sales price, right? And this is where if you track your sales, you should know, if you do 20 deals and your average price is 200,000, then you would change that to 200,000. Personally, for us, we have a different average sales price for listings, and we have a different average sales price for buyers, right? So we use two different ones. Then the next one up, you have sellers sold. That's how many you need to sell in a year. Then you have the conversion rate from listing taken to sold, which is 65%, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Then you have seller listings taken. That's how many listings you need to take in a year. And if you look there to the right, that's how many you need to take in a month, if you average it out. Then you have your conversion rate from going on the appointment to taking the listing. And then you have how many appointments you need for the year and for the month.
So we kind of start with that big number, our net income, the income that we want to make. And then we back that all the way. It kind of seems weird that we go backwards through the spreadsheet here, but starting with our net income, then backing that through the different conversion rates then tells us all the way back to how many appointments do we need to go on.
And when we, on the third or the second week, when we talk about the lead generation model, we'll break it all the way down to how many people you need to talk to per day to get those appointments, right? So we can even go farther, but for the economic model, we just need to know how many appointments we need per month and year to get to our goal.
So if we Jim, can I recap this formula?
Yep.
So plugging in these numbers on the seller side, this is kind of how it reads. If I go on 255 seller listing appointments, and I'm converting those at 80%. So I'm taking 80% of those that I go on. That's going to give me 203 and a half listings in the year. If 65% of those, if I market those the way I need to market them and I get 65% of those sold, then I'm going to end up with 130, I'm going to round it, 133 listings sold. If I'm watching my average sale price that I set in my business plan and they're at 300,000 based on this example, then that should give me a sold volume on my listings of that 39 million and some change. If I'm holding to a 3% commission on that, then my GCI on that should be, rounding at 1.2 million. And that would be 50% of my business. So that's why when we were talking about tracking those numbers, why they're important, because we've got to watch. If my average sale price is not 300 that I said it was going to be, and it's 150, and I'm doing, not that I can't do them at 150, but if I'm doing a lot of them at 150, then I have to make an adjustment. I have to go in and look. I can't just ignore that. If I'm going on listing appointments and I'm not getting any of them, I'm not hitting an 80% conversion rate, then I have to look at what am I doing in my business. I can't ignore those numbers. I can't just say, oh, well, 2 months, I haven't taken any listings. I can't do that. I've got to go back and make some adjustments somewhere. So that's where these numbers keep us on track. But it helps with this spreadsheet. We can start with that big number, plug in what we know. We know we want a 50% seller buyer business. We know what our commission is going to be. We know what our average sale price is going to be. When we plug those in, all of that will generate in the spreadsheet. When I wake up today, I know it is July 1st, I know my goal is 21.2 listing appointments this month. How am I going to break that down? What does that mean for this week? So that's why it's important. I mean, this is a business plan, really. It's telling me these are the things I need to do. These are the metrics I need to hit, and then I'm going to make this income.
So on the months or years where you haven't hit your goals, if that's happened, which I'm sure it has, what have you backtracked and done? Is it a equation of you're not talking to enough people? Are people not following the fundamentals? I mean, what have you found?
I'll be honest with you. I would say 100% of the time, if we're not hitting our goals, it's because we're not talking to enough people.
How do you? I mean, there's only so many people out there. Like, how are you finding these people to talk to?
So I think
calling.
Yeah. So that is going to be that's going to be. I think Jim will address that in the next one tomorrow or next week on the lead gen model. But yeah, I think you have to look at, you could have different conversion rates for different people that I talk to. I talk to those people I hold near and dear that love me. They're going to help me. They're going to help me get, those are going to be productive conversations. They're going to be quicker, easier, hot leads, as opposed to me pulling a list, in an area and cold calling. Okay. So you got to really look at, what are my conversion rates in those areas? And if I'm building a farm and that's my plan, then I know I got to have more people to talk to. If my plan is I'm working my sphere, I probably need to work, more. I got to have people in there, but what's my script? How am I talking to my sphere and getting them to dip into their sphere? So, I think Jim will go into that a lot deeper in the lead gen model, but it's really breaking down, who am I talking to and what type of conversion rates do I have?
The problem for us specifically, right? The problem has always been consistency in talking to enough people or talking to the people that you should, right? Because we have our number of the people we need to talk to per day. There is no shortage of people to talk to. It's the consistency of doing it day after day after day.
And we have had people say, you know what, I'm talking to my number of people a day. And I've had to say, well, who are you talking to? Well, I'm pulling a list and I'm just calling an area. Okay, well, then maybe that number is not your number per day if that's what you're doing. You either need to up the number or you need to bring in, another lead gen source to have those conversations.
I'll give you an example. If your number is you need to talk to 20 people a day, if you talk to 20 people from your sphere of influence, your results are going to be different than if you cold call people and circle prospect and talk to 20 people there, because 20 people is not enough. If you circle prospect, you're going to need to talk to 100 people a day.
Yeah.
So I think that's why the lead gen model is really important, because it will break that down and help you to see, okay, if this is my avenue that I'm gonna concentrate on, and I would challenge you to have, probably anywhere from 3 minimum to 5 maximum areas that you're gonna be talking to, and then you'll be a little bit more diverse with the lead gen. But I think the lead gen model will definitely break that down a lot more for you. So buyer side is kind of the same. I mean, it's really the same formula. The only thing that changes on that buyer side are the conversion rates are different. You know, I mean, we all know working with sellers and working with buyers, it's different. You know, I think Jim has some other models that he can break down that'll show that. But that's different on our business plan with our team. Like Jim said, we have a different average sale price for our sellers than we do for our buyers. And so that's another thing and I actually think we even have a different, I even factor in a different commission on those because, you know, I control the commission on the seller side. I don't necessarily control the commission on the buyer side. I hesitate on that because I mean, I can control that a little bit more, but I don't control what the other side offers. So I have a different commission on those.
So these conversion rates on this chart here, right? So when Gary wrote the red book, he got with, I think there was several hundred of the top agents across the nation. And these were the average conversion rates for those, right? And so if you're a single agent or an agent with a team and you go on, you know, 100 listing appointments, your conversion rate is probably going to be different than somebody that goes on 254, right? And so on the seller side, 80% kind of seems low. And this is why as you track your numbers, you'll know. If you're getting 90%, then when you do your business plan, you need to figure 90%. Because you're converting in a 90% rate. Just like I think all of us right now on the listing side, we're selling more than 65% of our listings, right? If you price it right and put it on the market, you're probably selling it.
So I think what you have to think about when you're looking at the conversion rates that are on here, and let's just look at the seller side, where like listings taken, it's saying 65% of those sold. You know, you got to think about like what we're looking at here. We're looking at a millionaire real estate agent, someone who's netting $1 million. And so that is a big operation. And so like Jim said, in order to have that kind of an operation and those kind of numbers, you got to put yourself out there a lot. And so what happens is you get more no's. And so that's why you'll see those conversion rates, like the more I'm putting myself out there, the more my conversion rates may tick down, but you know, the end result is that my income is higher because even though my conversion rates are ticking down and I have more no's, I also have more yeses. So that's why it seems kind of counterintuitive that, wow, well, you've got this big business, yet your conversion rates are way lower than mine. Well, it's because you're putting yourself out there more than I am.
And the good thing about the spreadsheet is it takes things into consideration, right? So you might say like 65% feels low on the sold, right? If you take a listing and you sell it, but it takes into account like inspections that don't go good and the deal falls apart, right? Or buyers that back out for some reason and all those different things. Because as you do more transactions, those things tend to happen. And sometimes they're out of your control. So,
and I think that's why when we were talking about those 8 goal categories that you're tracking, that's why it's so important, because then you can look and you can say, I'm taking these listings which are costing me money. Why am I not selling them? Why are my conversion rates not what I need them to be? And so then that'll give you where you can go back and look at, you know, what's happening there. Am I taking listings that I never could sell? Am I taking an overpriced listing? You know, and so tracking those numbers will help you understand what's happening in those conversion rates and how do I help myself or help my people.
And by the way, the biggest money suck from your business is listings taken that don't sell. That is the biggest thing that hurts people's businesses, because you have costs for maybe a stager, photography, marketing, and all your time, and energy. Then you get nothing out of it.
Your energy, your mental health, There's nothing worse than having listings that you can't sell. It's just it's exhausting. So, so looking at that, am I going on appointments? Am I not converting my listing appointments? And is that because I'm not pre-qualifying? Could I pre-qualify a little better on the front end where I'm not even going on that listing because that person was never going to be able to buy a home. So they're not going to sell. So there's a lot of things that go into these numbers and that number tracking.
We actually had that the other day. One of our agents went on the listing appointment. He was so excited, went on the listing appointment, got there and found out the guy can't buy a home because he doesn't have good credit. So,
any questions on this before you go on to your example? I know once you get in there and you start plugging in numbers, things will make sense. It's a little bit difficult when we're looking at these huge numbers, so when you go in and you say, okay, my net income is, I don't know, maybe you're looking at 100,000, 150,000 a year.
I'll change that here.
Okay.
So
sometimes I think it's not relatable when we look at those big numbers.
there you go. That's what the number looks like, right? And let's change this. So
that looks a little bit easier.
Yeah, does that make sense?
Right?
Like,
Now,
Yeah.
now that's
Robbie's probably thinking like, holy shit, man. I don't even know if I want to do this.
So there you go. I changed it a little bit more, right?
But hold on a second. Let me pause there. Yes, sometimes it's hard to look at those numbers, but that's available to all of us. We don't start there. We start here. But that's what I love about these tools and this tracking is it takes it from, we'll never be able to do that, and that's where Jim was talking about in the beginning, the think big, how the 9 ways a millionaire real estate agent thinks, and it's think big. And we can think big because we have the models that break it down and make it into steps. We're not looking at, these huge businesses and wondering like, how do I get there? We can take this and we break it down and we start like Jim has it now with the net income of 150. And then, then we're looking at next year, or we're looking at our numbers that we're tracking and we say, you know what, I'm killing it with for sale by owners. I think I can up my game there and I'm going to up my business by, X percentage. And so it really is about like opening up your thinking to the possibilities of the things that feel impossible.
So I went in here and I changed it, right? I mean, a lot of agents when they come into the business is like, if I can make 100,000 or 150,000, I'd be super happy.
Yeah.
You hear that a lot, right?
Right.
I changed it to 150,000, and I made it a little bit more realistic because, I mean, each one's different. We got agents in our office that sell $600,000 homes all day long, but on the seller side, say 175. On the buyer side, say 250, if that's your average price, right? This is the model right here. 4 buyers a month and 6 listings. If you went on 6 listing appointments and you met with 4 buyers, you would make $150,000 a year.
Where are you looking? Because I'm looking at 6 listing appointments. And 4 buyers. Okay, I see. Right. Appointments gone on. So you go on, and really, I would challenge you to focus on the 6 listing appointments. Like focus there and know that if I take those 6 listings, more than likely I'm going to get those buyers out of there. I mean, what do you have to take? You have to take 3 buyer agencies taken is what you have to take. And so you take those listings. So what is it, 4? So you take 5 listings, you should be able to get 3 buyers out of that, whether it's your seller who's buying or you're door knocking the area or
sign calls or people come to the open house.
So then you've taken a number, 150,000, and you've really reduced that to, I need to go on 6 very strategic, well-qualified seller listing appointments. And that's your one thing. And then from that, everything else will happen natural, I mean, you'll set up those systems, but it will happen. You won't have to have your focus on that. So that's what's awesome about these models. So yeah, these numbers probably make, it's like some of these numbers get so big, we're like, I can't even like comprehend what's happening there. But this makes more sense when you dial it down.
No, it does a really good job of, simplifying it and like, here's your roadmap. It's great.
Right.
Yep. So you want to focus on the numbers that you need to hit, right? Like the 6. I mean, like Yvette broke it down there. And when we talk about the lead generation model, it'll go even further, right? It'll tell you how many people you got to talk to per day to get your 6 listing appointments per month. And so you come in every day, and your job is I just need to talk to this many people, is what it really needs to be. Focus on the appointments and focus on the conversion rates. So I'm going to change this back here so I can continue on. All right. So back to where we started. So the next screen I am going to share with you. I need to stop sharing this screen and then share this one. I have some examples, and we'll talk about this stuff here. All right. You see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So the top one there, let me grab my sheets. And we can send this out also. So I'll get with Chanel after the class. I'll get you guys that spreadsheet that we just played with. And then I'll give you these examples. Okay. So the first top one here is the example we just looked at, right? The formula, the roadmap for a millionaire real estate agent. Again, the most important number on this whole sheet here, besides how much you make the net income, is the monthly appointments, right? So the next one down below is.
So Jim, on the first one, you changed the. Oh, okay.
Sorry,
I was looking at the wrong one. I was looking at the wrong one.
So the top one is this one here is what we just looked at and played with on the spreadsheet, right?
Right.
That's the ideal. The next one is if you were a more selective listing agent. Okay. So what's that mean? That means you pre-qualify them better, right? You don't go on every listing appointment that comes along. You're more selective. So the difference between this one and the top one, here so you can see it, right, is 38 less listings taken per year. You net the same amount of money, but you pre-qualify them better. And so what does 38 less listings equal? Well, if you figure each listing takes you a minimum of 4 hours, right? From the prep to the actual presentation to the travel there and the follow-up after 4 hours. 4 hours, 38 listings, that's 152 hours a year. That's a lot. That's like a whole month of work.
Yeah.
So if you look at the first example, the one that we were looking at earlier, and that's the top one. Let's look at the seller side. You'll see like the conversion rates on that. You've got appointments to taken 80% and taken to sold 65%. And you'll see in that second example, they're flipped. Because you're more selective, you're taking less, but you're taking the ones that are going to sell. So you're doing the work on the front end to ask the questions and be more selective. You're not just running out to every appointment of someone saying, hey, I want to sell my house, or I want to know what my house is worth. You're being more selective. So the conversion rates switch because you're taking less, but you're converting more. You're going on less appointments, but you're converting more of them.
So if like I said, it's 38 less, right? So it's 152 hours a year less. But also look the seller listings taken from the top one is 17 and it's 14 on the bottom one. So that means you have less signage cost, less photo cost, less stager cost, less time on the administration side. So your cost is a lot less because you're not doing as many transactions, but you're selling.
You're not
less, but they're better.
You're not taking the listings that you can't sell.
Right.
You're digging deeper before you take that listing.
Yep. So the next example here is this one. What if you don't get a buyer agency with a buyer? How does that affect you, right? So if you look over here, the 80% and the 65, they're flopped. It used to be 65 up here and 80% here. So if you don't require a buyer's agency, you're putting more people in your car because they don't have to sign anything. They're not committed, right? So if you look at this formula here, you will show 40 more people homes. You'll put 40 more people in your car and drive them around. Takes about 10 hours per buyer's agent. That's 400 hours a year because you don't have a buyer's agency agreement.
And I think, again, those are those things like when we say, let's track those numbers, and you go back and you look and you're like, why am I working double what, my coworker is working? That's where tracking those numbers, you can see, oh, okay, well, what can I do? Oh, I can require a buyer agency because I'm seeing that a lot of these people aren't really committed to me. I'm putting them in my car, but they're not committed to me, so they're falling off, or they're using me as their, taxi service to see the homes, and then they're, using Uncle Bob to buy, the property. So, but you can see that when you track the numbers. If you're not tracking your numbers, it's not going to be as obvious to you, well, why am I working so much harder and not making any money?
So the next one, a couple more examples here. Next one, increasing your commission as a listing agent, right? So on the main example, we used a commission of 3%. If the listing agent as a listing agent, you charge 3%. So what happens if you charge 3.5%, right? So if you figure, besides you make more money, but if you figure, again, 4 hours, because you got the prep, the presentation, the travel, and the follow-up, and it's 30, if you did 3.5, that's 36 less transactions that you have to do.
For the same money.
For the same money. It's 144 hours a year. That's 3.5 weeks.
So each transaction, we figure about 4 hours worth of time. So if you can eliminate, X amount of transactions because to make the same money, then you're saving 4 hours each per transaction that you can eliminate.
3.5 weeks you can use for vacation, right? Or buying back your time. So that's if you increase your commission. The next one is if you decrease your commission, right? If you decrease your commission, you have to go on 50 more appointments. So at 4 hours an appointment, that's 200 hours a year.
And again, those numbers are based off of this $1,000, the $1 million. You want to go in and you want to take these examples and play with those commissions and play with those conversion rates. What if I didn't require a buyer agency? So put your number into that formula and then take these examples and look at how much would I save. I think the biggest thing, and we can recap that, but I think the biggest thing is knowing how much time does a listing require? How much time does a buyer require? How much time does a transaction require? And then you can figure out your own. Okay, how much time in my world am I going to save if I hold to requiring a buyer agency agreement before I put someone in my car?
So I can tell you, like here where they say 4 hours, right, for a seller, because you got the prep, the presentation, the travel, and the follow-up. I know for me, it's more than 4 hours because I know my listing appointments last more than an hour.
More than
I'm
4
lucky if I
hours.
get out there in 2 hours.
More than 4 hours.
Not
least
4.
At least 2.
Between 2.5 and 3 hours usually for a listing appointment for me, right? So it's even more cost. But if you look at this decrease in the commission, where you got to go on 50 more appointments. Now you're going on 305 appointments. Not only do you have 200 more hours that it takes me personally, but then as a team leader, I've got 50 more signs, advertising, 50 more times I got to pay for photos, 50 more times I got to pay the stager, and I got 50 more transactions my transaction coordinator has to handle. And that might mean that over the course of a year, she needs another person. So now it's a whole nother salary, right? So how expensive does that get if I go to these listing appointments and I'm cutting my commission all the time? It's not just, hey, I'll cut my commission because I want the listing. It's the trickle-down effect of what else does it cost you? And then the last one is an economic model if you wanted to net $500,000, right? So we have the formula for the million. This is $500,000. And like I say, it's easy. I'll send the spreadsheet to you. It's super simple to get in there and change those numbers and see exactly what yours is. And like you say, you change it to the 150,000 and you bring it up and it's like, man, I need to take 3 listings or 4 listings a month. That's it, right? It doesn't seem as daunting like you said. So are there any questions?
No, it's pretty sweet. Super helpful.
Yeah. Makes it easy.
I think that's what's nice about these models is there's no guessing to it. You know, I mean, it's really, let's plug the numbers in and then figure out what I need to do the work. You know, and I think, and so I think that's, you know, when we say that, oh, it's simple, it's not easy. I think that's why Gary spent so much time on the front end of this book working with Headspace, because you look at it and you say, well, what the heck? I can take 4 listings a month. And so then it's, well, why don't we? Why don't we do that? And so that's why we can't ignore that, the first section of that book. And that's why I think personal development and all of that comes into play, because it's really easy to get bogged down in the minutia of this business and lose focus that I'm waking up, I have to make X amount of phone calls, I got to take X amount of listings this week, you know, and we get bogged down. And so that's where, you know, that's where all that other stuff that he has in there in that first 127 pages, that's why it's so critical. Because if it were easy, everyone would execute this at that level. The challenge is our headspace. Who are we around? Are we tracking our numbers? Are we taking care of ourselves? You know, that's why that, and I think most of his books start out that way. Most of the talking is about that, you know, where's your headspace on this?
Yeah, I like the fact that you're religiously tracking the conversion rate too, because the first year I got into real estate, you're just naturally going to have, you know, more losses than you are wins, it seems like. And you just get really down. And I think it took, you know, me to my second year to realize, hey, listen, you know, if my conversion rate's 90%, there are going to be 10% of those losses that just don't work out. So you're kind of able to like pick yourself up and, you know, just move on to the next thing a little bit easier.
Yeah, there's a lot of power. There's a lot of power in putting those numbers in front of you, because I think we get, you know, there's a lot of negativity in this business. We're told no a lot, and it's and just human nature. We're going to focus on that, on the negative. You know, oh, I worked all day, and you know, I was on the phone, and I hit my numbers, and it was, you know, everyone was crappy to me, and it's really easy to absorb that. But when you step back and you look at, okay, I'm tracking my numbers over the course of a week or a month, you can go back and you can see it felt negative, but look at my numbers, and then that will ground you.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it also makes it easier when I'm prospecting, right? So if I know 27 is my number, I need to talk to 27 people and I get an appointment, as all those other 26 people are telling me no, I know that appointment is coming soon. As opposed, it just makes it easier mentally on me, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still being told no a lot,
Yeah.
right? But I know somewhere it's coming quick.
Well, I think too, we start to control our day because, like Jim said, if you know your number is 20, is you got to talk to 27, and out of that 27, you need to book an appointment. If number one books an appointment, you've got two choices. You can say, you know what, I've got, other things in my business I want to take care of, or I want to take some personal time. I hit my one. Now that being said, if you have 27 and you haven't hit it, then it's okay, I've got to step it up. I either have to go at more intensity with these calls, with being a little bit more direct in what I'm saying, so I can get that appointment. But I've made 27 calls and I can't stop here. I have to get an appointment. And I think when you have that in your mind, that I'm not just on the phone, just chatting with people, I have to take this conversation in a direction that they are going to engage with me, and I'm going to be able to set that appointment. You just come at it different. But if you don't know your numbers, if you don't know what you need today, then you end up just having all these phone calls where you're just chatting.
Where's a good place to get scripts for, like, just in general? Do you guys have a general good source just to study up on scripts and things of that nature?
Yeah, there's like no shortage of scripts out there. And it's, you see it, like someone will say, oh, I've got this script. And everyone's like, like, give me your script. Like there's some magic words. And I'm not saying like there aren't ways that we have to have conversations. Honestly, you can get inundated with scripts. I would say like pick the one or two in each area. So maybe it's FSBOs, your objection handlers. I know Keller has script books where you can go in and you can, and they've got multiples for each category for buyers, sellers, objection handlers. So I know those are in there. But again, if you sat with my team and you heard, hey, what's that script you're using? They're going to tear that page out and tell you to go make a copy. So I think the biggest thing is, again, who are you surrounding yourself with? Are you hanging out with people who, maybe there's someone who is having really good success with for sale by owners, and go sit with that person, talk with that person. What are you saying? And then take the foundation of that script and learn that, and then it comes out the way you want it to come out. But there's scripts everywhere. You could go, where else? There's
so Maps has some, right? KW Maps, their website has some. Keller, I'll see if I can find the link. They used to have, if you printed it out, it's probably that thick.
Yeah, it's huge.
Literally. And we've accumulated some over the years from different agents that are good at different things, right? Like Yvette said, there's some that are really good at expireds. There's some that are really good and have good plans at FSBOs. There's some that are really good, like Abe Shreve.
He has Abe has a YouTube channel, Abe Shreve. He's a MAPS business coach now, but he does one called Amazing SOI calls or Amazing Sphere calls. And he actually, he does it on his YouTube channel. And I think we've actually transcribed that one. But that one is really good. I really like that one. But what I would do is more look for and get into some of these Keller Williams Facebook groups where you can say, hey, because sometimes it's hard. Like the person next to you, they're killing it with FSBOs. And we know that there's limited number, and you're like, hey, can I have your script? And for the most part, you would think people would share with you. And I think people have good hearts, but sometimes it's like, that's my bread and butter. And there's, but if you reach out to all of Keller Williams and say, who kills it with for sale by owners? And then call that person, because that person may be in Louisiana and they couldn't give, they couldn't give You know,
Looking for the non-swear words, huh?
I want to say a swear word, but I'm not gonna. You know, so they don't care if you're using their script up here. So so that's I find that that's a really good resource, is looking at who's really killing it, and you reach out to them and they'll help you.
And Josh, Abe's last name is spelled Shreve.
Oh, all right. I was almost accurate.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And it's Abe Shreve, and sometimes it's Abraham Shreve. So depending on how you search, you'll find it. It's a great video, and it's awesome. I think it's the best one for your sphere of influence.
Yeah, I'd rather call SOIs than cold call, of course. So.
Conversion rate's going to be a lot higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know one of the things, like in the Keller Williams script, a lot of times they say, you know, make your calls, and when you call your SOI, you say, hey, this is a business call. And I'm like, I'm never going to talk like that. I'm never going to call my friend and say, hey, this is a business call. It just seems weird to me. But when Abe did it, and he does that script on the video there, he says something like, you know, hey, John, it's Abe. Hey, you got a couple minutes to talk about business? You know, and then, well, I can do that. That makes sense to me. So, so it's really looking at how are people saying it, and how do you connect with that? There's so many different ways of saying the same thing. But again, you could get really inundated with scripts everywhere. I would say reach out to those people.
All right, thank you.
And if you don't know, like reach out to Jim and you know, or reach out to Diane, or, you know, who's really good at this. And they'll tell you, and a lot of times they can even make a connection for you. You know, and there's agents who will definitely, you know, talk with you on the phone. There's some that'll say, hey, come out and shadow me. So, but if that's really going to be a leg of your business that you're going to focus on, then I would look at who's the best of the best in Keller Williams.
Thanks.
Hey guys, we've only got a couple minutes left on the call, but Rob has a question in the chat. He's wondering if you've ever lowered your commission rate to get a listing, and is it even worth it at the end of the day if you've still got to cover your costs?
So yes is the answer, right? I think anybody that's taken listings at one point or another has probably lowered their commission, because the question gets asked a lot. I'll also tell you, at a certain point in our career, it was like, enough of that stuff, right? And I remember the day that it happened for Yvette. Some guy called and said, you know, they were talking on the phone, and he's like, will you do it for less? And she's like, no. And he's like, why? And she's like, because I'm worth the money. And he's like, okay, can you be here at 5? And
well, I think what happens is and if you ask my team, they'll probably tell you the one thing that I am vicious about is their money. Because and it isn't because, you know, money. It's because I know what we put into this business, and I see what other agents on the other side make. And when we cut our commission, and I think that's what happened with Jim and I, we cut our commission to a friend, and the transaction was a nightmare on both sides, just trying to negotiate it and just the things that came along. And so I had told Jim, I got to hear myself say no. I got to just hear it, and I'm going to lose business. So I think on that call that Jim's talking about, I had pretty much determined I was going to lose the business. And this guy ended up being an FBI negotiator. But I didn't know it. It was a phone call. It was he called in.
It was a 9 call.
But you know what? When you figure out what you're worth, what your value is, and you're willing to say, you know what, I'm drawing the line. This is my value. I know what I'm worth. You are lucky to work with me. And this is this is early on in our career. This isn't like years of experience. This is early on. But when you make that determination that this is my value, and I'm willing to hear no. You said, like, have we ever? Yeah, but I'm usually strategic about it. I usually either everyone else is cut first, and everyone's done what they can do, and yes, we'll do something, or I'm looking at a listing and I'm saying, you know what, we want to come into this market, or there's something on the other side of it, but I'm always strategic about it.
Yeah.
I've kind of gotten to the point where if that's an issue for them, right? And I try and have, actually in my listing appointment, I try and have the commission discussion before they even ask the question, right? So it's one of the things I do. And so we don't now get a whole lot of commission objections. But if it is, what I say is, let's do this. And if commission at the end is keeping the deal from closing, then we'll address it then, right? Because if I'm going to get you more money because our way of selling stuff is better, then why should commission be an issue? And sometimes they're fine with that. And sometimes you just lose it because they're going to go with the guy that charges 5%, right? And then typically what happens is the house sits on the market for 9 months or 6 months. And yes, I watch those, right? And it's just nature. And sometimes you're better off if you didn't take it. But any other questions? All right.
Oh, thank you. Very helpful.
Absolutely. So next week, same time, we will cover lead generation, the different systems and conversion rates and different stuff there. We'll talk about everything there.
That'll be the best class.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about just real quick on that spreadsheet that Jim has, off to the side, the percentages that are in there for cost of sales and expenses, you may have some questions on those. So I think Jim has some other numbers. If you're working that and you need to talk through those percentages, then I would say just reach out to Jim and he'll tell you what numbers you need to plug in there. Because those are definitely numbers for when you're running a team. So there's other numbers that we can plug in there.
And we'll talk about all that stuff in the third class and the budgeting class.
Right.
Also.
Right. But don't get too bogged down with that. You know, if you're really diving into that spreadsheet, then know that you probably need to tweak those numbers. Don't get too bogged down with that until the budget model.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate
Absolutely.
your time and that you are doing this for us.
Thank you.
For coming. See everybody next week.
All right.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.